Well, I'm so very pleased that I'm able to announce today that a re-elected Klaasje government will be able to provide $3.5 million towards the Brisbane Holocaust Museum and Education Centre. It's going to be a really wonderful addition to the community and a great opportunity to continue to memorialise those people affected by the Holocaust, but very importantly, be part of imparting a great message of peace and love and multiculturalism here, part of our Queensland community, into the future.
What can the community learn from the Holocaust Museum?
Well, I think it's such an important opportunity to educate particularly young people about the horrors of racism, and that racism takes you not just to a lack of respect, but can take you to places of evil. And that's where it's a very important message. And it's so wonderful to be able to see the Jewish Board of Deputies here in Queensland having been great advocates of this proposal for some time. And I'm very pleased that a re-elected Klaasje government will join the Australian government and perhaps other levels of government to provide funding towards a really wonderful project.
And is it too early to say what you'd like to see in the museum?
Well, all I know is that I had a wonderful opportunity not too long ago to join with Paul and Jason and visit one of the Jewish Board of Deputies' travelling exhibitions that was at St Margaret's School here in Brisbane, and seeing in their library the great information and engagement opportunity with young people at that occasion. That was really inspiring to see what could be a permanent part of Brisbane and a permanent part of Queensland's engagement with the broader community, and telling that story about the horrors and potential impact of racism.
And of course we're at the Brisbane Synagogue and celebrating one of the lighter sides of the Holocaust. What is tonight all about?
Oh, it's such a great honour for me to be even just here present, to be part of this presentation, that recognition of the righteous amongst nations, a very extraordinary demonstration of the way in which the Jewish people and others affected by the Holocaust have recognised those that very bravely took steps to protect the victims of the Holocaust. And the fact that we've got this little part of Queensland playing a part of what is a global story in relation to this honour is wonderful. And it's nice to know that we have the descendants of the Haar family here in Queensland, and here at the Brisbane Synagogue, a very historic, important part of our city will play a role in the recognition of that. And I really want to acknowledge the ambassador, the interim ambassador, and his contribution to this today as well.
And what do you know about the story? It's so heartwarming.
It is extraordinarily heartwarming, and it needs to be. It's a great example of the sort of, as you say, lighter parts of and positive stories that can come from the Holocaust. That, for instance, a Holocaust Museum and Education Centre can be part of telling and showing that out of the depths of horror, there are great shafts and beams of hope. And this is a great opportunity to celebrate that and to tell that story.
Okay, what's your reaction to the funding announcement tonight?
Well, today it's a terrific announcement, and thank you to Minister Hinchliffe and also to Treasurer Cameron Dick and the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk for their support, which really means we're on the road now. We're on the highway to establishing a Holocaust Museum and Education Centre here in Brisbane, to be the same as Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, to have a permanent memorial to the Holocaust, but also other genocides. And it's really important to educate the young and adults, both online and in person, about the messages from the Holocaust.
And amazing to have a Dutch family who emigrated to Australia recognised tonight.
Certainly is, and the museum will highlight the righteous among the nations, like the Haar family, like Oskar Schindler, like others who rescued Jews so the Jewish race could continue.
So tell me what you knew about your parents' story.
they were lovely people, and there was a big risk for them too. You know, to hit the boy.
And did you know Joseph? Do you remember him? Yeah.
I always looked after him when Mum went out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what does it mean to be here tonight, having your parents recognised for risking their lives to save
Because
Joseph's
Mum
life?
was supposed to have the medal when
2001, yeah.
Yes, my mum was sick, and I rang up Sydney and told them that Mum wasn't coming, and they said they would arrange for somebody to come to Brisbane to give her the medal.
And I understand Joseph was the one who initiated this whole
Yes.
process to get them recognised for what they did.
The first time when I met up with him was in Holland. My husband and I were there for a holiday, and I sent him a Christmas card with a Dutch stamp on it, and he knew straight away, there in Holland. So he came to visit me up there.
Oh, nice. And you kept in touch with Joseph for many years?
Yeah, for many years, yeah, and I still keep in touch with his wife, with Siegfried.
What was the age difference between you and Joseph growing up?
4 years.
Okay. So as a 6-year-old, do you remember having to hide him or anything, or what was going
we never
on?
hid him, never. He was one of the family.
Yeah.
He looked a lot like my eldest brother. My eldest brother had curly hair and everything, and he just played on the street.
And he just became one of the family.
Yeah, he was one of the family, yes.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for my mother to give him up.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been really hard to see him go back to his biological family. Yeah.
But he came every holiday till he was 13. I think when he was 13 he went to Israel. 13 or 14, and then we went to Australia in 56.
Okay. Did you see him after that at all?
Yes, he came 3 times.
Okay.
And we met with him in Holland again.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible award tonight, and you must be very proud of your parents and what they did during that horrific time.
Yes.
Yeah. They were recognised in 2001. Why did it take so long to be here tonight?
Well, see, I was suppose a lot younger, and life goes on, and I think as you get older, you become more aware of the past, and I think today the younger generation need to know about the past. And then Liam, my nephew, he went to Europe. My 2 boys went to Europe, and they went to some of these museums from the war times and that. And it was just when Liam came home 2 years ago, he sort of inspired myself, and he goes, "Oh, Auntie, we need to really look for this medal." And like I said, every year I march with my school on Anzac marches and that, and you always think, "Oh, I wonder where this medal is." Didn't know where to start looking because we didn't have the letter that my grandmother got. And so we just started emailing a few of the embassies, Israel embassies. So I emailed in Holland, Yad Vashem, Canberra, Israel, Holland, and finally tracked it down. So that was a lot of excitement. And it just went from there. And it's been 2 years now, or nearly 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're finally, it's happening tonight.
It's fantastic. And what do you know about your grandparents' story?
Well, we knew they hid a Jewish boy, and we knew that, fortunately in the end his parents survived the war. And, hearing stories from Mum more so, because my grandparents didn't talk about the war days. And like I said, I was a younger child then too. And then his parents came back to get him, and it was quite traumatic, for my grandmother and my grandfather to see him go with his parents. And as a young boy, he saw my grandparents as his parents, apparently. So you can, as a mother yourself, you can only fathom what it would have been like. And then also, the risk my grandparents put themselves in to save this young boy when you've got your own children. You know, you put yourself in their shoes and you think, well, what would I have done? And thankfully, you know, they opened their door and he got to survive. He got to be reunited with his parents, and then he had a family of his own. And, you know, my mum keeps in contact with his wife, and through this I've met his daughter just, you know, through Skyping and emailing. So, just email, sorry, but yeah. So
Did you ever meet him?
Yes, in Australia he came out, I can't tell you how many times, but on a number of occasions he came in to visit my grandparents and with the family. But yeah, I don't remember a lot of it because once again I was a lot younger too. And yeah.
And it sounds like he really knew the risk that they took in saving his life.
Well, obviously when he became an adult, because, you know, when he went with my grandmother, apparently he was only 2 years old, and then at the end of the war, with the liberation, you know, he got to go back with his parents, so that was a good thing for him. Yeah, very fortunate.
So what's it like to actually be here tonight getting this medal?
Oh, exciting. I'm just over the moon for my grandparents. Unfortunately, you know, they're not here. Unfortunately, Joseph isn't with us either. But I just in honour for them, you know, just like it's just wonderful for them, I think, yeah. And even for the family. And it's a part of history for our family and for Joseph's family as well. And I think it's for the younger generation, like, because to me, you just don't want that to ever happen again, you know, yeah. Yes.
And the Labor government announced that they'd be funding a Holocaust Museum in Brisbane. Will you be coming when it opens?
Definitely, yeah. Oh, I think that's just tremendous, yeah, definitely. It would be wonderful. Yeah, once again, for the younger generation and for people to go there and to be able to read the stories of what happened in the past. And like I said, you just don't want that to happen again.
And I imagine Joseph's story is going to be part of that museum.
Oh, I'd like it to be. Well, the family would, yes. Yeah, we've all spoken about that, and I think, you know, it's an honourable thing to do for our grandparents. And like you say, you know, they risked their lives for that, and yeah. But anyway, it was a good outcome in the end for Joseph and my grandparents, so yeah.
Well, tonight we have the honor, the great honor, maybe the greatest honor, definitely for me, to award a couple who is not anymore with us, unfortunately, Van der Haar, to give them the highest order, the highest medal that Israel can give to non-Jews who have sacrificed their lives during the Holocaust in order to save Jewish lives. This is an opportunity not only to remember, not only to honor those that have saved lives, but as the minister has said just before, this is an opportunity also to learn, to educate, especially the younger generation, about how terrible it can be when people become enemies to each other, when race becomes a subject, and when we start hating each other. During the Holocaust, just to remember, 1.5 million Jewish children were killed, thrown into the trenches, shot at, thrown into the gas chambers. 1.5 million children, 6 million Jews, 1/3 of the Jewish nation, more than a half of the Jews that used to live in Europe during the Second World War. The Jewish people resurrected from that terrible episode, tragedy, maybe the darkest period of humanity of all times. We have resurrected. We have today, built on the ashes of the Shoah, the State of Israel. The State of Israel has created the first institution to to remember the Holocaust, Yad Vashem, already during the 50s. And its most important mission is, first, to commemorate, to recollect the memory, to investigate, to search, but most importantly, to educate. And part of the education is also to be able to honor these people who risked their lives in order to save Jewish lives. I have to add in this respect that all of us are tested in extreme conditions. These people did what they did, not in order to receive money for it, not in order to be awarded later after the death, like today, with this highest possible medal. They did it as a natural human act. They did it they did it because it was so natural for them to save their neighbor, to save a Jewish child, also to save sometimes, some of them could save many. A very famous story is the Oskar Schindler story that later was filmed. So it doesn't matter if you saved one person or you saved hundreds like Oskar Schindler. In Judaism, we say that if you save one soul, it is as if you have saved the entire humanity. So in this case, this evening, we have the great honor to award this title of Righteous Among the Nations to the Van der Haar family. And it serves as an example to all of us, and especially to the younger generation.
And I understand it was the little boy that they took in and saved who initiated this process for them.
Yes, the story, of course, is a long story. So I will maybe put it in short, as we do not have maybe so much time. But the family took a young child at the age of 2. This young child, by the name of Joseph, was brought up, at least for the next 3 years, during the wartime, from November 42 until April 45. He was brought up as their own child. When there was risk, they hid him in the attic. There were all kind of ways already prepared in case collaborators would come and search for him. For example, a nosy neighbor has asked, how come the parents of this child do not appear? Because they told that they bring up this young child whose father is in Germany working and his mother can take care of him. So when they heard this, they have also organized that a good friend of them would arrive twice a year and would pose as if he is the father of the child. So they did everything in order to safeguard his life. And thanks to what they did, Joseph could reunite after the war with his biological parents. He later immigrated to Israel, as many others of his kind that immigrated to Israel after they lost their families, they lost their parents, they lost their brothers, they lost their children. And on the ashes of the Holocaust, they have created, all of them together, the state of Israel that is here with us today in order to, among others, first serve as a safe haven to Jews all around the world, that something like this would never happen again. And as also a guarantee that Jews are part of humanity. They are a nation among nations, and we were resurrected thanks to people like the Van der Haar family, and many other families that have saved Jews during this most terrible and tragic period of humanity.
And I also understand another beautiful aspect of it is they named their next child after the little boy, Joseph.
Yes,
It just shows what impact he had on their lives, doesn't it?
Yes, yes. I believe I haven't mentioned it, but they already had 3 children who are with us today. True. And after Joseph left, they had the 4th child, and they named him also Joseph, or Joop in Dutch, after Joseph. Yes.
And the Minister's just announced funding for a Holocaust Museum here in Brisbane. How important is it to have places like that where people can learn about the Holocaust? I understand some people still don't know what the Holocaust was.
Yes, as time goes by, and as witnesses are not longer with us, and testimonies become second-hand, become history, it is always even more and more important to learn the lesson of the Holocaust for all humanity. And this is why I personally am today very grateful listening to the Minister telling us about the support of the federal government, and I understand also of the local government, to open up a museum for the commemoration of the Holocaust, for the education of the younger generation. It is, as the Minister, as using the words of the Minister, that is it has the utmost importance in order to educate for humanity, to educate the younger generation to love each other, to put the differences between us, like the false idea of race, to put it aside and to behave with each other with that humanity which was expressed so strongly under that terrible period by the family Van der Haar.
Did you want to add anything else at all?
I'm thankful for the Australian government, for the local government of Queensland as well, for assisting the Jewish community in its activities. It's a flourishing Jewish community in Australia. Our brothers here, we are thankful for this very strong relation that exists between the Jewish community and the Australian government and the Australian society. And my message is that this wonderful friendship should only continue and flourish.